Namaste and welcome to Madhu's English Academy. English is easy. This video is for class 10 students. And children, you will be learning lesson 3 from your first flight textbook. This is a continuation of my previous video. Part 1, His First Flight, written by Liam O'Flaherty. In this video, you will find the line-by-line explanation of the text. If you have not watched the previous video, I have given the link in the description. Kindly do watch it because the first part of the story is given in that video. In the previous video, we read about a young seagull who was afraid to fly. His parents and siblings had left him and flown away to the next plateau. The sun was now ascending the sky, blazing on his ledge that faced the south. He felt the heat because he had not eaten since the previous nightfall. He stepped slowly out to the brink of the ledge and, standing on one leg with the other leg hidden under his wing, he closed one eye, then the other, and pretended to be falling asleep. Still, they took no notice of him. So what did this little seagull do? He wanted to attract the family members because it was very hot. The sun was now ascending the sky. Ascending means climbing up. So the sun was on the sky, blazing on his ledge. So it was shining on his ledge. Blazing means it was making the ledge very hot. And that faces south. The ledge was facing the south. He felt the heat because he had not eaten since the previous nightfall. Since the previous night, this little seagull has not eaten anything because his family members left him and went away. He was alone, so he was feeling the heat. He stepped slowly out to the brink of the ledge. So he stepped to the brink of the ledge and, standing on one leg with the other leg hidden under his wing, he closed one eye, then the other, and pretended to be falling asleep. So he went to the corner of the ledge so that he could attract the attention of his family members, and he pretended to be falling asleep. Still, they took no notice of him. They did not even take care of him. He saw his two brothers and his little sister lying on the plateau, dozing with their heads sunk into their necks. His father was preening the feathers on his white back. Only his mother was looking at him. She was standing on a little high hump on the plateau, her white breast thrust forward. Now and again she tore at a piece of fish that lay at her feet and then scraped each side of her beak on the rock. So this paragraph tells about the family members. He saw his two brothers and sister lying on the plateau and sleeping with their heads sunk into their necks. Look at the picture. So brothers and sister were sleeping like this. His father was preening the feathers on his white back. So his father was cleaning the feathers and setting it right. He was cleaning the feathers. Only his mother was looking at him. So only the seagull's mother was looking at the little seagull. She was standing on a little high hump on the plateau, her white breast thrust forward. So she was standing in a little higher area. Now and again she tore at a piece of fish that lay at her feet and then scraped each side of her beak on the rock. Every time the little seagull saw that the mother was tearing a piece of a fish and then she was sharpening her beak on the rock. The sight of the food maddened him. How he loved to tear food that way, scraping his beak now and again to wet it. "Ga, ga, ga," he cried, begging her to bring him some food. "Ga kula," she screamed back derisively. But he kept calling plaintively, and after a minute or so, he uttered a joyful scream. His mother had picked up a piece of fish and was flying across to him with it. The sight of the food maddened him. This little seagull was very hungry And looking at food in his mother's beak, this feeling made him very angry because he wanted food immediately. How he loved to tear food that way, scraping his beak now and again to wet it. He loved to tear food and to scrap the beak on the rock and to make it sharp. Wet means sharpen. So he wanted to eat the food and sharpen his beak. Ga, 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 he cried, begging her to bring him some food. So he cried at his mother, he begged his mother to bring some food. Ga, cola, she screamed back derisively. She just looked at him and ridiculed him. Derisive means ridicule or make fun. But he kept calling plaintively, and after a minute or so, he uttered a joyful scream. But he did not lose hope, and he was keeping on calling his mother plaintively. Plaintively means sadly. And after a minute or so, he started to shout very happily. He gave up a joyful scream. His mother had picked up a piece of fish and was flying across to him with it. So his mother had picked up a piece of fish and she was flying to this little seagull. This sight made him feel very, very happy. She leaned out eagerly, tapping the rock with his feet, trying to get nearer to her as she flew across. But when she was just opposite to him, she halted, her wings motionless, the piece of fish in her beak almost within reach of his beak. He waited a moment in surprise, wondering why she did not come nearer, and then, maddened by hunger, he dived at the fish. So this little seagull leaned eagerly and he was tapping on the rock with his feet, trying to get near to his mother. And she was coming across the sea and she was coming near the little seagull. But when she was just opposite to him, she halted. Halted means stopped. Just opposite to him, she stopped, her wings motionless. Mother did not flap her wings and she was motionless without any movement. The piece of fish in her beak almost within reach of his beak. So the piece of fish was in the mother's beak and it was just a few distance away from the little seagull's beak. He waited a moment in surprise, wondering why she did not come nearer. So this little seagull expected mother to come near and to drop the fish, but mother did not come near. So he was surprised and he waited and wondered why she did not bring the food near. And then, maddened by hunger, he dived at the fish. So he himself jumped at the fish so that he could grab the fish from the mother's beak. With a loud scream, he fell outwards and downwards into space. Then a monstrous terror seized him, and his heart stood still. He could hear nothing, but it only lasted a minute. The next moment, he felt his wings spread outwards. The wind rushed against his breast feathers, then under his stomach, and against his wings. He could feel the tips of his wings cutting through the air. With a loud scream, he fell outwards and downwards into space. This little seagull was already standing at the brink of the ledge, and when he jumped to get food from the mother's beak, he did not realize that he was jumping out of the rock. So he started to fall from the rock and he started to fall in the space. He started to roll in the space. Then a monstrous terror seized him and his heart stood still. He started to feel very scared. Already he was scared that if he falls down, he may die. So that fear again came to him. He could hear nothing, but it only lasted a minute. He was not able to hear anything. Suddenly it was blank, completely blank. But that blankness was only for 1 minute. The next moment, he felt his wings spread outwards. The wind rushed against his breast feathers, then under his stomach and against his wings. Then he realized that automatically his feathers started to flap. He started to spread his wings and he started to fly. He could feel the tips of his wings cutting through the air. He was able to feel the air moving all through his body. He was not falling headlong now. He was soaring gradually downwards and outwards. He was no longer afraid. He felt a bit dizzy. Then he flapped his wings once and he soared upwards. Ga 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 coola. His mother swooped past him, her wings making a loud noise. He answered her with another scream. Then his father flew over him, screaming. He saw his two brothers and his sister flying around him, curveting and backing and soaring and diving. Now the seagull realized that he was not falling down, but he was soaring gradually downwards and outwards. Soaring means flying. He was no longer afraid. He just felt a bit dizzy. So he was not afraid now, but he was little tired. He felt like he was feeling dizzy. Then he flapped his wings once and he soared upwards. Ga ga ga, ga 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 coola. His mother swooped past him, her wings making a loud noise. Then he started to flap his wings and he flew upwards. His mother screamed and she came near him. He answered her with another scream. Then his father flew over him screaming. He saw his brothers and sister. They were also flying around him. They were celebrating this moment by curveting, banking and soaring and diving. So they were doing different kind of flights to celebrate this occasion. Then he completely forgot that he had not always been able to fly and commended himself to dive and soar and curve, shirking shrilly. He was near the sea now, flying straight over it, facing straight out over the ocean. He saw a vast green sea beneath him, with little ridges moving over it, and he turned his beak sideways and cawed amusedly. And now, children, this little seagull forgot that he was not able to fly a few while ago, and he was commending himself. Commending means praising. He was appreciating himself, and he was diving, he was soaring, he was curving, he was shouting out of enjoyment. Out of enjoyment, he was flying, and he came near the sea now. He was flying straight over the sea, straight on the ocean. He saw a vast green sea beneath him, with little ridges moving over. Little waves were there on the sea, and he turned his beak sideways and cawed amusedly. Do you know why? Because he was just above the ocean and he felt scared that he may drown into the water. His parents and his brothers and sister had landed on this green flooring ahead of him. They were beckoning to him, calling shrilly. He dropped his legs to stand on the green sea. His legs sank into it. He screamed with fright and attempted to rise again, flapping his wings. But he was tired and weak with hunger, and he could not rise, exhausted by the strange exercise. So when he was flying, suddenly he saw that the ocean was very near to him and he got the drowning fear again. But his parents and his brothers and sister had landed on the green flooring. They had landed on the sea before him itself, ahead of him itself. They were beckoning to him. They were calling him. They were shouting him, and they were telling him to. They were encouraging him to come and sit. He dropped his legs to stand on the green sea. He tried to stand on the sea. Is it possible to stand? His legs sank into it. As it is not possible, his legs went inside the water. He screamed with fright and attempted to rise again, flapping his wings. So he felt scared that he's going to drown, so he started to shout and tried to flap his wings and to fly again. But he was tired and weak with hunger, and he could not rise, exhausted by the strange exercise. But he was tired and he was weak due to hunger. The previous day he had eaten, so he was very hungry, and because of the tiredness he got exhausted and he could not rise by the strange exercise. Strange exercise, what was he doing? What was the exercise he was doing? He was flying, right? So that was the strange exercise which he had done. His feet sank into the green sea, and then his belly touched it, and he sank no further. He was floating on it, and around him his family was screaming, praising him, and their beaks were offering him scraps of dogfish. He had made his first flight. So when he went and tried to stand on the water, he was unable to stand. He fell and his feet sank into the water. And because of this, his belly touched the water. Immediately, he realized that he was not sinking anymore and he was floating on the water. And around him, his family members were there. They were screaming out of joy and praising him. They were not only praising, but they were also giving him gifts. What was the gift? They were giving a fish variety called dogfish. And do you know why? Because they were all very happy that this little seagull had made his first flight. So he learned to fly. So children, always remember, if you want to achieve something in your life, you should have self-confidence, self-motivation and self-reliance. More than anything, you should have the trust and faith in you. If you have all these things, surely you can do miracles. And here is a question for you. Refer the dictionary and find out the different meanings for the word flight and comment it in the comment box. I am waiting for your answers. Thank you.